Welcome back, everyone. After the Exodus from Egypt, we find God speaking to Moses from Mount Sinai. These theophanies are facilitated by thick clouds and darkness. According to Exodus 19, on the morning of the third day there were thunders and lightnings and a thick cloud. Exodus 20, the people stood far off while Moses drew near to the thick darkness where God was. And in Exodus 24, on the seventh day, God called to Moses out of the midst of the cloud. The clouds and darkness serve the same function, to reveal and conceal God, making God's presence perceptible, but also acting as the protection for the human observer beholding the divine presence. Now, the tabernacle, it's important to note, is how the ancient Israelites carried the Sinai experience with them in the wilderness. So not surprisingly, God appears in a pillar of cloud at the entrance of the tent of meeting. Later in the Torah, on the Day of Atonement, the cloud is provided also by incense. The purpose of this cloud is simply stated, so that the high priest does not die during the theophany. The point I want you to take away from this is simple. God does appear visibly, but during those appearances, his presence is also veiled. Human vision is obscured. Speaking of the tabernacle, one of its prominent features is the veil, or curtain, that separated the holy places, and in doing so, of course, it obscured human view. The curtain therefore corresponds conceptually to the clouds or the sky. The color of the curtain, as well as the cherubim crafted into it, heighten the similarities. It doesn't take long to realize that the tabernacle is full of Sinai imagery. And when God appeared to Moses on Mount Sinai, he brought heaven to earth. The tabernacle, therefore, is full of heavenly imagery. This is, of course, explicitly stated in Exodus. The pattern for the tabernacle was divinely revealed. Now let's transition to the Gospel of Mark. And when the 6th hour had come, there was darkness over the whole land until the 9th hour. And at the 9th hour Jesus cried with a loud voice, Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani, which means, my God, why have you forsaken me? And some of the bystanders, hearing it, said, Behold, he is calling Elijah. And someone ran and filled a sponge with sour wine, put it on a reed, and gave it to him to drink, saying, Wait, let us see whether Elijah will come to take him down. And Jesus uttered a loud cry and breathed his last. And the curtain of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom. And when the centurion, who stood facing him, saw that in this way he breathed his last, he said, Truly, this man was the Son of God. Now assume with me for a second that Mark, like every other New Testament author, is writing for readers who know the Old Testament. What do you see? Darkness obviously obscures human vision and could be relevant to the verses in Exodus we've looked at. Such a conclusion would be strengthened if there was more tabernacle or temple imagery in this particular passage. And of course, that's what we find. Notice that the centurion stood facing Jesus. The Greek word here is frequently used in the Greek Old Testament for approaching the Lord at the tabernacle. Here are a couple of many examples of this from Exodus 27 and Leviticus 1. And of course, the temple veil is torn. More on that after we talk about Mark's literary strategy. In Mark's Gospel, the identity of Jesus is not revealed in the human realm until the end. Part of the reason for this is the repeated failure of Jesus' audience and followers, including the 12 disciples, to understand what Jesus was saying and doing. Thus, the identity of the Son of God is restricted to the supernatural realm. For example, there's the voice from heaven in Mark chapter 1, and the voices of the unclean spirits in chapters 3 and 5. The transfiguration in Mark chapter 9 is another example, which deserves perhaps special attention since we're looking at chapter 15. During the transfiguration, again, there is a cloud which serves the same function as the darkness, as we've seen, then a divine pronouncement of Jesus as the Son of God, followed by a misunderstanding about Elijah. In the crucifixion account, there's also darkness, a misunderstanding about Elijah, and a human pronouncement of Jesus' divine sonship. The centurion in the crucifixion saw what Peter, James, and John should have seen during the transfiguration. I think Mark wants us to read these passages together. Jesus' identity, divinely revealed during the Transfiguration, will finally burst into the human realm via the lips of a centurion. Here's another note about Mark's literary strategy. He also has a very strong Jesus as the new temple theology in his gospel, the same as we read in the Gospel of John. However, in John, it's just a bit more clearly stated. Now, we don't have time to trace this theme in Mark's gospel now, so let's just note that Mark has already primed his readers for this tabernacle temple imagery in the previous chapter. Some stood up and bore false witness against him, saying, "We heard him say, I will destroy this temple that is made with hands, and in 3 days I will build another, not made with hands." Clearly, this accusation is supposed to hang over the entire crucifixion account. The misunderstood identity of Jesus, as well as the new temple imagery in Mark's gospel, converge brilliantly in the account of the crucifixion that we read earlier. Both of these themes and more resolve in this passage. Darkness signals a theophany, as it did in the Old Testament. In this case, finally, Jesus' self-revelation. This darkness will conceal and reveal. The vision of the mocking bystanders in this passage remains obscured, but not for all. Consistent with Mark's theme of those closest to Jesus misunderstanding him, the phrase Son of God finally occurs on the lips of a presumably pagan centurion. This is one event that happens directly as a result of Jesus' death. Another event that is caused by Jesus' death is the tearing of the temple veil. Recall the purpose of the veil. It meant that access was prevented into God's dwelling, including visually. It's very important to recall that conceptually, the veil corresponds to the sky or clouds. Remember, the tabernacle is how the Israelites take the Sinai experience with them. This is why the writer of Hebrews can say, on the one hand, that Jesus passed through the heavens, and on the other hand, that he passed through the curtain into the Holy of Holies. Conceptually, they're synonymous. So alert readers, as Mark expects us to be, will remember, of course, that the sky was torn open during Jesus' baptism as well. The heavens were torn open and the Spirit descended. Clearly, for Mark, the heavens and the veil serve the same conceptual purpose. So what does all of this tell us? Using darkness, Mark signals to the reader that a theophany, or Christophany, may be impending. The broader context confirms this. Jesus' identity is about to be revealed. The purposes of the tabernacle, simultaneously God's dwelling place, and the way to approach God, are shown to be both embodied in Jesus, the Son of God. Jesus is the new temple, and recall the tearing of the veil, Jesus provides access to the Father. Just as ancient Israelites would come before the Lord to the tent of meeting with an offering, Mark wants us, the readers, to stand facing Jesus, offering himself on the cross. So what do you see? You see the veil removed. You now see the face of God. You see, as the centurion, the supreme act of complete self-surrendering love and the self-revelation of the Son of God. What an incredible passage. But it's still worth asking, do you clearly see the Son of God in this scene, or are you, like one of the mocking bystanders, oblivious to the divine disclosure of Jesus Christ? Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time.